So at some point, reality is going to have to be accepted, and a new modus vivendi worked out between Ukraine now looking westward and Russia controlling part of Ukrainian territory. I think that's going to be the new reality. It's not acceptable to anybody, but that's the basis on which this war, which has by and large gone into the deep freeze.
Time then to invite you into our daily briefing room, where we speak to one of our leading tactical and strategic minds with experience at the highest level of the military about Ukraine, where they are celebrating, of course, Independence Day. Welcome, Lord Dannatt, General Lord Dannatt, former head of the British Army. Hi.
John, good evening. Hi.
It's good to have you with us, Richard. Looking at the pictures just today, before I came into the studio, of the Prime Minister Boris Johnson, still the Prime Minister Boris Johnson in Kyiv. He's still the serving PM. He had British military commanders alongside him at that table as it was meeting President Zelenskyy of Ukraine. I wondered what is going through their mind, and you, as a former head of the British Army, would have some insight into that. I wonder what they are feeling and thinking, sitting next to Boris Johnson just a couple of weeks before he ceases to be Prime Minister, on the value of this visit to the effort in Ukraine, tactically, strategically. What do you think?
Well, I think several things, really. I think Boris Johnson perfectly reasonably wants to make a final visit before he ceases being Prime Minister, and that's another complete issue which we don't need to talk about now. But I think it does underline to Ukraine the strength of British support, and almost irrespective of who becomes Prime Minister, I think we can see that support continuing. And I think the senior military officers who were sitting beside Boris Johnson would recognise that and believe that that is right. And of course, it is right that the UK, NATO, decent countries in the West would all be supporting Ukraine, because Ukrainians are fighting for the same sort of values, by and large, that we have. Yeah. So I think it was perfectly reasonable that he was there. But there is a real danger that actually he contributes to giving them a greater sense of the art of the possible, the greater sense of optimism than perhaps actually a dose of realism really suggests.
Really? What do you mean by that, Richard?
Well, Russia is not going to lose this war, but whichever way I look at it, I find it quite difficult to see how Ukraine can win it. Indeed, the terms winning and losing, I think, are the wrong terms to use to this. At some stage, this conflict is going to return to negotiation. It's widely reported, it is a fact on the ground, that Russia now controls some 20% of Ukrainian territory. The United Nations, the world media, everybody might tell the Russians they've got to go. The Russians will never go voluntarily. I can't see the circumstances whereby the Ukrainians will ever be strong enough to throw them out. And the West, NATO, whoever, is not going to mount a Kuwait-style coalition operation to throw them out. So at some point, reality is going to have to be accepted, and a new modus vivendi worked out between Ukraine now looking westward and Russia controlling part of Ukrainian territory. I think that's going to be the new reality. It's not acceptable to anybody, but that's the basis on which this war, which has by and large gone into the deep freeze. The Russians have pretty much stalled in Donbass, but although the much vaunted counteroffensive at Kherson undoubtedly will take place at some stage, I don't see it happening for a while. The Ukrainians have not got their strength together sufficiently yet.
Yes. But when you listen to Volodymyr Zelensky today, he made a broadcast to his people on this Independence Day for Ukraine. He was talking about fighting till the end. He was talking about not just peace, but victory. He seems to be a million miles away from the chain of your reasoning there, Richard.
Well, sadly, that's right. And I would also say that it's not for the West to lean on him and say, come on, Zelensky, you've got to face reality, because they would then perfectly reasonably say the West, having encouraged them, is now sending them down the line. He has got to, at some point, realise, and his advisors have got to realise, and the military commanders have got to advise, look, Mr. President, we have done as much as we can, but we really can't throw the Russians out. We can prevent them taking any more territory, but I think we are going into a stalemate situation. President Zelensky, sir, you've got to start negotiating.
Yeah, I mean, the worry is, as you know better than me, the worry is that the argument that you're deploying there is a recipe for, it may bring, ultimately at some point, peace to Ukraine, in that the fighting would stop. It would mean Russia, it would mean Vladimir Putin's forces halting on a new line of control occupying part of Ukraine, maybe quite a large part, and then just sitting it out for a while they regroup and rearm and get ready for the next big thrust. You'd be delaying, not ending, not halting the inevitable.
That is quite possible. But I'm afraid I'm going to flip the coin back to the other side again. And John, you just tell me what the alternative is. I can't see Ukraine, albeit strengthened considerably by the West, being sufficiently powerful, sufficiently numeric to be able to throw the Russians out. And this situation may well go into the deep freeze, and a new normal may have to be accepted. Now, the West is not going to leave Ukraine on its own. The West will continue to support Ukraine with arms and ammunition and training. And goodness gracious, there's thousands of Ukrainian troops in the UK being trained at the present moment. So we're not going to sell them short. But I say again, I can't see the circumstances whereby they're going to be strong enough to throw the Russians out.
Okay, well, good to talk to you as always, Richard. Let us talk again. We're looking at the plight of Ukrainians, and I know that you have a Ukrainian mother and son, I think, with you.
We have, actually, and I said to Larissa this morning, well, of course, it's the 6-month anniversary of when this war started and 31st anniversary of our independence.
Yeah.
They come from Chernihiv.
Well, Richard,
Nikolai,
best wishes to them.